Welcome to the Essential Self-Care Podcast, a show for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. Each week, we bring you real-life stories and expert insights to help you create a kinder, more compassionate relationship with yourself. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani, a physician with over 2 decades of experience blending Eastern and Western well-being practices. As the founder of Radiant Living Institute, I'm here to help you reconnect with your own inner radiance. Remember, small changes make a large impact, and it all starts here. Please note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare provider about your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. I am super excited about today's guest, Dr. Erica Howe. I'm welcoming her back to the show. This is actually her, Erica, this is your third time on the Essential Self-Care Podcast. You are the first third timer on the show, which I'm really excited about. So let me introduce yourself. Let me introduce you a little bit more for our listeners, and they will clearly see why I have invited you back for a third time. So Dr. Erica Howe is a board certified hospitalist physician. She is a speaker and an advocate for improved wellness in medicine. In 2018, she founded the Women Physicians Wellness Conference in Grand Cayman as a way of bringing women physicians together to share their struggles and their strategies for success. She believes that women are stronger together and wants to inspire them to find the courage, clarity, and community to succeed on their own terms instead of someone else's. Dr. Howe, as I mentioned, was previously a guest on this show. So she was on episode 67. Transforming Shame into Strategy, and episode 71, Advancing Your Career Through Networking. So definitely after tuning into this episode, go back and check out those episodes. They were fantastic as well. And today I'm welcoming Dr. Howe back to talk a bit about the power of safe spaces for women to connect authentically and vulnerably. Welcome to the show, Dr. Howe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ajmani. It's so wonderful to be back. I am so honored that I'm the first third timer. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And that there's even enough episodes now that the show is still going that I can have folks on for the third time, which is really exciting.
I love it. I love it.
So for our listeners, Dr. Howe and I met virtually last year, and we had the opportunity to meet in person just about a month ago, or is it a little over a month ago now, as of the recording, in Grand Cayman at her conference, Women Physicians Wellness, where I had the opportunity to join her and join the conference as one of the speakers. And so it was such an incredible experience. And after returning from that experience, I had this realization that we both create and facilitate safe spaces for women to connect authentically and vulnerably. You through the Women Physicians Wellness Conference, which there are now 3 conferences a year, as well as Women's Professional Wellness Conference,
Yep.
which is for women in or outside of medicine who are professionals, who are also seeking a wellness conference, and personal and professional development. I facilitate these spaces through both individual and group coaching, and specifically the Female Founders Collective and Women's Leadership Circles. And so, you know, a bit sort of different formats, right? WPW is a large conference held during specific times of the year, beautiful locations. I believe, let me see if I got this right, Grand Cayman, Aruba, Bahamas, Amelia Island.
You got it.
Yes. And for me, the Female Founders Collective and Women's Leadership Circle are held in person in my region where I live in Hampton Roads, Virginia, with a virtual option available as well. So a bit different formats, but essentially a similar idea and similar mission of creating these safe spaces for women to really grow together, to connect authentically, and both of us realizing that that has to be done in spaces that feel safe so that we can actually open up vulnerably, which for female physicians and female professionals and high achieving women, as Erica and I both know from our own personal experiences, it can be really hard to do.
I think you nailed it. I think so often we are because much of the time, if you're a high achieving woman, you are working in a male dominated field. And so there is a societal pressure for us to always look calm and collected and, held together. Everything, we got everything under control. But that, life is messy sometimes. And, we have struggles that, sometimes, we're really overcoming obstacles. We're really trying to figure things out, and that can be messy. So to have a safe place and time to come together and just share with each other, like what you're going through, your struggles, and also your strategies. I tell the women at WPW, and I imagine you do the same, that yes, we have an incredible group of speakers, you being one of them. And thank you for that amazing talk, by the way. But you also can learn just as much from the other women sitting at your table. And that just being vulnerable with them, that is so powerful for really hearing from other women that they get you and that you are in a community, that understands you and understands what you're going through, as well as, you may be meeting some other women who have worked through that obstacle that you're struggling with, that can share some ideas with you. In the very least, share support and community, but maybe able to say, this is what I did, this is what worked for me. And I think that is the power of the community of women that we're both creating.
Absolutely. I agree completely. I'm going to reflect on something that we both have very intentionally done. So for me as a speaker, when I'm delivering these keynotes and workshops, I always build in time for small group discussion. And that is the most powerful piece of my talk. So, I mean, obviously the information that I give is really valuable as well and helps build up and guide where the small group discussion goes, but it is embedded into my talk. And it's so interesting, Dr. Howe, because when I introduce okay, we're going into these sort of small group discussions and reflections, initially I can feel this energy of hesitation in the room. And then I do this sort of intro of this is a safe space. And I go over certain guidelines of what makes this a safe space and what needs to be done to create a safe space to go into this dialogue. But then once they get started, pulling the group back together from those small groups into the large group discussion is always the hardest part. And something that really struck me when I was planning my talk for Women Physicians Wellness Conference is that you sent over guidelines for all of your talks, and you did the same exact thing. You embedded this time for small group discussion into every single speaker presentation. This was a requirement of the speakers. And it's something I did naturally, already have that built into my talk. And I think that's why it really stuck out to me as well, that is something that you were requiring of your speakers, because that is such an essential component of what you are creating at these WPW experiences.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, that's absolutely true. I think we've all been to those talks before where someone just gets on stage and they kind of regurgitate either a bunch of data or maybe they share their personal story as well. But at the end of it, you're left with that's great. And what about me? How does this relate to me? And I really want the women that attend WPW to come in and to learn from these speakers and then share kind of what they're personally going through and really strategize with each other on how they can apply the information they're being given. Because I don't know about you, but I have been to leadership conferences before that were, 14-hour long days. And, at the end of 3 of those, I had to jump on a plane to get back to then round the next morning. And I never had any time to really digest what I was being taught or to apply it. So I will say, one of the things, I remember getting a wonderful email from a woman after the first WPW. And she said, I just love that, it's only half days, which I had gotten pushback on for sure. And we put a lot of content into the half day, but at 1:00 we are done and you are going to go sit on the beach or go take a nap or whatever. And I really wanted my attendees to have protected time, not just to learn, but also to think and reflect on what they had learned. So I had taught a med ed course for many years for faculty at my old institution. And there's a lot of data around when you give learners, specifically adult learners, a chance to reflect on new knowledge, they are more likely to apply it. And so I really wanted that for my attendees, as well as a chance to rest and reflect and enjoy a nice tropical location, of course. But one of these attendees sent me an email and she said, I was really kind of hesitant about it just being a half day, but you were talking all about kind of setting boundaries and how to say no gracefully and all of this. And then it really kind of put the bug in my ear that I really wanted to send an email that did set some of those boundaries. And that's what I actually did that afternoon. And I was able to immediately apply the information and have a result of not being on a committee anymore that she didn't want to be on, that has improved my life. And I haven't even gotten back to my regular life yet. I'm sitting here writing this email on the plane, and there's already been a change. I've already made a change in my life because of it. But I think it requires that protected time and space, and protected time to just kind of relax and reflect and rest, which so often either our lives don't give us permission for, or we don't give ourselves permission to do. So I've tried to be pretty strategic in my locations, in the timing of the conference, in our negotiating for the hotel rates that extend beyond before and after the dates of the conference. I want you to make a vacation out of it. I want you to rest. I want you to take a nap.
I love that. I love all those pieces. And I love how intentional you are with putting together this conference and this experience for attendees. I mean, I say conference, but truly you're putting together an experience for attendees. And you're so right. I mean, I agree with everything that you said, right? Giving the opportunity. I loved that the conference was half days and that it did allow for that opportunity to rest, recharge, to actually explore, because all of your conferences are in these beautiful settings. So it actually gave you time to explore the location as well and what it has to offer. And, I saw you also built in, even within the half day, you built in a break as well. And so I liked that. Well, first of all, I always enjoy a mid-morning snack. So having a break with snacks was really important. And also I noticed, that time was so valuable for women, because I noticed many women sitting outside looking at the ocean, and journaling their reflections during that time. And I noticed other women connecting in conversation and being able to just sort of build on some organic conversation, right? And discussion. And so that time is really valuable for whatever an individual needs, whether it is time to reflect, journal, or actually take action and apply the knowledge in real time. Before we go on, I'm excited to share something that could really make a positive impact on your life. Do you feel like you've lost touch with your true self? Reclaim Your Radiance is Radiant Living Institute's signature coaching program designed to help you reclaim your worth, renew your energy, and restore your happiness in your life, career, and relationships. This 6-module program has already helped countless women regain control of their lives. Whether by setting boundaries in challenging relationships, finding strength through life transitions like divorce, pivoting in their careers, or rediscovering their purpose as they embrace new chapters of their life. Start your journey today and begin living authentically, unapologetically, and radiantly once again. Head over to radiantlivinginstitute.com/reclaim-your-radiance to get started. I hope you found that helpful, and if you're ready to explore this more, check out the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into today's episode. And I also want to reflect upon something that you shared. We talked about creating these safe spaces so that we can open up vulnerably, so that we can, maybe start to dive into also some of our emotions and acknowledge what we're feeling, right? And you also mentioned strategies, right? So it's a place for both of those things. Like the Female Founders Collective Women's Leadership Circle as well. It's a space where I call it part peer support, part mastermind, part group coaching, because it's all of that. We need all of that, right? There's that professional personal development, what we're actually learning, these strategies from the speakers. There's learning from each other. There's sharing and being open vulnerably. And there's also applying these strategies, because something that you said at the very beginning of our conversation here, for the most part, as female physicians and as female high achieving individuals, we are primarily at this point in time working in male dominated spaces, right? And so also looking at these strategies, as of the time of the recording, by the time this episode is released, this event will have already passed, but hopefully you will do it again. But I have signed up for it. You are offering a free workshop next week about negotiation, and I personally believe that that's a topic that as women, we don't talk about enough
Right.
and as much. And we know there's research and statistics about the fact that women tend to negotiate far less often than men do, and that when we do negotiate, we ask for, I believe if I'm getting recalling the percentage correctly, about 30% less than what our male colleagues ask for in negotiations. And so, having these conversations about these strategies as well is so important. And so I just want to emphasize that these spaces that both you and I are creating, and just for anyone listening, this conversation isn't just about sort of these spaces that Erica and I are creating. It is also about, one, if you are seeking spaces like this, knowing that they exist and knowing what elements to perhaps look out for that may be important to you. And then two, if you are listening and are saying, I see a need to fill a gap where a space like this is needed as well, bringing some light to some key elements that you may want to incorporate into those spaces, right? But knowing that having a space where you can be vulnerable and can talk about some of these, what you're going through personally, as well as strategies, right? And then also, another thing I thought of from something you said at the very beginning is, as women in these predominantly male dominated spaces, I often hear a lot of the women who come to my women's leadership circle of, when they speak out passionately in a boardroom where they're the only woman in that boardroom, they often get labeled as being emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And things like that. And so having spaces where we can talk about things like that, realizing that we're all just human, right? And speaking passionately means that you care about the topic, right? And, I don't know why, but still in our society and culture, if a woman speaks up passionately, they're called emotional. If a male speaks up passionately, they are heard.
Right.
And so, what are the strategies that feel authentic and aligned that we can incorporate or that have worked for our colleague, other female colleagues that we can learn from to continue to advance and feel heard and seen in the spaces that we are showing up in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's so important to have that protected space where it is exclusive to women, where we can come together and kind of share some of those stories that we've all experienced and those discriminations, to be quite frank, or microaggressions, and how there are women along the way who have been in it long enough, been in the trenches, that they have learned different phrases to say, different responses to give, or lack of responses. Both are powerful, to really let other people know that that's not okay, and that I expect different behavior from you. But it does take coming together in those spaces. And you mentioned, we have both created space that is protected for women. And it's funny because in the beginning, when I was starting this, there were definitely conversations that people would have, like, oh, like, you probably don't want to talk to me because I also run an event. And I was like, it's not pie. Like, you can have an event and I can have an event. And I tell the women at WPW all the time, I hope this resonated with you. I hope you found value, and I would love to see you here with me every single year. But if you didn't, then keep looking, because there's a lot of other events out there. There are a lot of other places to find your community. And if this isn't it for whatever reason for you, then I want you to find it somewhere else, because I really believe that we need this. We are stronger together, and we are stronger when we support each other. I really feel like society and our culture has told us to compete against each other as a way of keeping us down, keeping us less than. And we need to recognize that that's something that is taught and learned as children, and not something that we're born with as an approach to life and a strategy. And you can support other women doing the exact same thing that you're doing. It is not pie. We can all rise together. And so I thank you for all the hard work that you're doing in the same space for the women in your community. And I love that we're having these conversations together, and that we are supporting each other along the way.
Yeah, I love it too. It's so important. It's so important. We were just talking, for our listeners, we were just talking about this a little bit before we started the recording, about how we need more spaces like this, and we were talking about, this episode, and I mentioned it earlier, is, yeah, if you are seeking a space like this yourself, right, just kind of, hopefully this conversation is bringing to light perhaps some aspects of an experience like this that you would want, or maybe that you don't want, and that's fine too. But just finding that clarity for yourself so that you can find the space that feels like a good fit for you. And, like Dr. Howe shared too, I share the same belief, maybe my space isn't it, and that's okay. That's okay. The fact is, and that's why we need all these different spaces, because maybe there's a different voice or approach or group that feels more aligned to you. And that's perfectly fine. There isn't like this finite amount of this that the world needs. Like, we need so many more spaces like this. And Dr. Howe and I were just talking, we had a great conversation. I mean, we were talking that we could just talk for hours, because we had a great conversation even before the recording started. But just talking about a bit about the mental health crisis in this country. And, there is such a need for more and more safe, supportive spaces. And so, thank you for the work that you're doing in creating and building those spaces, and being so intentional in creating these experiences for the women who attend your events. And, like I just mentioned, there's so much more we could talk about, but for time's sake now, I think we should start to wrap up for this episode. So where can people learn more about you, the work that you're doing? There's the conferences. And as I also alluded to earlier, you are also hosting some workshops intermittently. There's one that I signed up for next week about negotiation. Like, where can people learn about all of the things that you're doing?
Absolutely. So the best place is through our two websites. The first is womenphysicianswellness.com, and the second is womenprofessionalswellness.com. And that really incorporates kind of all the exciting stuff that's going on with our events. And yes, I'm just starting. I'm doing my first negotiation workshop. I've taught for, oh my gosh, probably 15 years on conflict management and negotiation. And so it's actually going to be a 3-parter. So you have signed up for the first of 3 that'll be coming out. So I'm excited to teach that next week and hear your feedback as well on that. But yeah, all things WPW can be on those 2 websites. And then if anybody, if you have any questions, or want more information, or really anything, you can always email me too at ehowe@themedicaleducator.com.
Great. And I'll include all those links and your email address in the show notes below. Thank you again for being here and joining us once again today.
Thank you, Sheetal. It's always such a pleasure, and I just love connecting with you. So, and thank you again for the space that you're creating.
I know you have so many choices for how to spend your time, so I thank you for being here today with Essential Self-Care. As a gift, download your free workbook, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life at radiantlivinginstitute.com, and start your journey to a more radiant you.